projected path for LSEE is supposed to be. So we'll start with Ms. June Jones, who is a representative from the School of Ed's Student Services Center. And she's the one who really works with you guys as you are working through your admissions to the teacher preparation program. And she has the doctor or Miss? Doctor? Miss, okay. Miss Jewel Davis, she's the interim director of the Student Services Center. And then Dr. Beth Bader and Dr. Mary Herman. Dr. Herman represents the counselor education program, and Dr. Bader.
Beth and Mary is fun.
Beth and Mary is for the special education program, so they'll share their programs with you as well.
Okay. With that said, again, my name is June Jones. I work in the VCU School of Education Student Services Center. We're located in Oliver Hall on the first floor, 1037, in case you want to stop by. What I'm passing around is just some general information about the Masters of Teaching program for elementary and secondary education. It's really good information, as well as some degree and certificate programs, all of the programs that are offered throughout the School of Education, so you can get a general idea of what we offer. How many of you all are planning on going into elementary education?
Yay.
I will. Right? Okay, this is good because the teacher preparation program, for, if you didn't know, was designed for individuals who are interested in teaching elementary education. And what the focus is you get the BIS degree with the interdisciplinary courses, and you extend into the teacher preparation program, which is the graduate portion of things. Everybody gets excited when they hear the teaching part and forget all about the undergraduate part and want to come straight to the School of Education. But it can't work like that. You have to focus on getting your undergraduate coursework taken care of as much as possible. My head is going like this and I'm talking and thinking at the same time. The green sheet that I passed out is the most important sheet that you will see throughout the entire program. It's going to give you a checklist on what is required from admission to teacher preparation, to admission to the graduate program, to admission to your student teaching experience, and applying for a teacher licensure. So everything you could possibly need would be on that sheet. When you come into the teacher preparation program, as you can see on the checklist there, we require a 2.8 GPA. We are trying to get away from petitions because it creates a lot of havoc. Students are encouraged when they're coming into the program to keep that GPA as high as possible so that when it's time for you to hit teacher preparation, you will be okay. The reason the GPA is where it is because in order to get admitted to graduate school, you have to have at least a 3.0. And it's sometimes very difficult to move from a 2.8 to a 3.0 within a semester. So as much as you can keep it high, that's what we encourage you to do. So I'm not going to read all of this information because you all can read and you can see. But if you have specific questions that you would like to direct to me, I would rather take those, and spend that time with the questions as opposed to reading through all of the material. I'm sure your undergraduate advisors have informed you how the program works. You've read the website, so everybody knows that the BIS degree, if you come through the graduate portion of the program, you will get the Masters of Teaching, which is an initial licensure program for teachers. PK through 6 is your certification. You will get the master's degree, the bachelor's degree, and at the completion of the internship, you will get your licensure. So everything comes at the end. So if you're trying to think, well, I'm going to take my undergrad and come back in, you might want to reconsider that because that's just not how the program is designed. Although if there's, a circumstance that you have to graduate, we will work with you. Okay? Are there any questions? So everyone knows how the program works. Gotta have one question.
I'm thinking one up.
Okay.
I'm trying to put it into words. I guess I don't know what part this would fall into, but what if hypothetically you need to get to that point where you need to like go ahead and graduate and then come back to the graduate program? Is there like, I guess taking a break in between getting the bachelor's and the master's, like
some students do
separate
that,
time?
you know, for financial reasons or whatever you might have going on. As long as you opt out, you know, you take the degree, then you come back. You can enroll into the master's program because the program is the same. It's just that when the extended students do it, they have more, they have the capability of registering for the classes quicker than you would. If you were to come back, you would have to wait until you actually got officially admitted to graduate school before you could enroll in any classes. Whereas if you continue to extend, you have priority on the classes. So that's the major difference and you know, of course, course. Yes.
So I was looking online and it says that everything in total is 11 semesters. So would you be graduating after you do your 5th year plus another semester? Would you be graduating in December?
It depends on when you actually start teacher preparation. You can, when they have the 11 semesters out on the website, you have to come into the university knowing that teaching is what you're going to do, and you have to go spring, summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, the entire time in order to do that 5-year thing. So that's why we've put the emphasis on extended as opposed to 5-year, because it's really difficult to do it in a 5-year. Because if you think about it, an undergraduate degree is a 4-year program. Most master's degrees are 2-year programs. So you could do it in like, you know, 5.5, pretty much. But it's really difficult to do it 5 without going constantly all ever since you've been here.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions? So everyone knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Yes.
Once you're in the program, speaking, you know, positively.
That's what you do.
Once you're in the program, as you're going through it, I guess the question I want to ask, like, have you heard any feedback, or what's the experience from those who are in it, as far as maybe the workload in the classroom and doing the, you know, the practicum part and doing their work as students?
Well, I know what you're saying, but I guess because I'm not in the classroom, I couldn't tell you. But a lot of students, when I'm advising, because I also do the academic advising, they take the load as we advise them to take it. Some students try to take graduate level classes, undergraduate level classes, and take them all out of sequence, and they get disoriented, and the flow is not there. But if you follow, you know, the sequence that we're telling you to take, the balance is there. And they tend to do well with balancing the coursework and the practicum experiences because they're setting up the time. There are designated days that you will be doing your practicum experience out in the schools, and there are days that you will be here on the campus. So it levels out, it balances out. And we don't tend to have students who have problems unless they're trying to overload themselves and get out quick. And that's just not what we, you know, suggest, because you want to take in as much as you can so that when you get out in the field that you're prepared to teach. Anyone else? Yes.
Speaking of the practicum, how would that affect financial aid? Because I know talking to advising, like they, you know, advise you not to take no more than 2 classes while you're doing practicum. So since you'll be in the school and you won't actually be, well, I don't know, but you'll be at the school, how does that affect, you know, how much you're charged?
You still get your credit hours for your practicum. It's just like taking a class.
Okay.
So you still get your credit hours. It won't affect your credit hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a silly question. If you do, like, I guess reverting back to my previous question, if you take that break after the bachelor's, and I think I already know the answer, I just want to write it down.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot get the teaching license without continuing on, like, without finishing the master's program.
That's correct.
Okay.
They go hand in hand.
Okay.
You can't get one without the other. We're not just a licensure program. We are a Masters of Teaching which is an initial licensure program.
Right, okay.
So it goes together. And VCU does not issue you your license. We have nothing to do with the license. Your license is issued through the Virginia Department of Education for the state of Virginia, okay? So our program is an approved teacher preparation program through the Virginia Department of Education. So everything that we're requesting that you take, they have said, yes, this is what we want for our teachers. So it's an approved program. We also have reciprocity with about 40 other states. So if you decide to leave the state of Virginia and move to, say, Wisconsin, you could take that degree with you and not have to worry about doing any additional testing, because we require a lot of testing. And our standards are very high here in Virginia.
I've heard of people just, like, if you move from Virginia, it's easier to get a license somewhere else, but if you move from another state to Virginia, that person has to go through more
That's
to
right.
get the license.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. Yes.
I have a question also about the testing, and I do apologize about my lateness. You may have already answered this question. The VRA, is that required?
It is now the RVE. The VRA was replaced by the RVE, which is Reading for Virginia Educators. It's for elementary education and special education individuals. So you're no longer taking the VRA, it is the RVE that is required. On the back of the green sheet, there's a website that will direct you to the test to give you detailed information, as well as dates of testing and cost. So you can get more information. It's on towards the bottom.
Now, is that also, would you need to take that and pass that before you get your license?
You need to take that prior to your student teaching experience. Yeah. But definitely before you get your license. It is a requirement for licensure.
And the practice also?
That's going to be in your elementary content area. That's going to be taken prior to your student teaching. So once you read through that green sheet, you'll see what testing is required at what stage.
Student teaching is the last semester.
That is correct. That's the very last thing you're going to do. And it's the entire semester. It's a 16-week placement where you're placed in a school division with a school and a clinical faculty or cooperating teacher, and they're going to monitor you, but you're going to be teaching that class the entire semester. But fear not, you will be prepared to do that by the time you get there.
Is it the last semester of, excuse me, the undergraduate or
No.
in the master's?
Masters, in the
Okay.
masters. It's the very last thing in the master's program.
Okay.
The county you're placed in, is it only Richmond?
No, we deal with Richmond, Henrico, Chesterfield, and Hanover counties. Those are the 4 school divisions that we place. Yes.
Once you apply to the teacher prep program, how long does the notification process take?
It usually takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, because we receive not only elementary education for teacher prep, we're getting all of the programs for teacher prep. So everybody has to be processed before we can start sending out information. So it takes a while. The one thing that they have done away with is the interviews, so that's not going to happen. So either you're going to be in or you're not going to be in. But it takes a while because we have one individual processing all of the applications. Yeah. Yes.
All right, so say that you don't get into teacher prep. What is the next step? Like, what do you do?
Well, that's something you would have to discuss with your undergraduate advisor at that time, because if you can't make it in there, then they're gonna, talk to you about some other options, maybe taking a different degree or going into a different program or things of that nature. So they would have to definitely talk to you about some other options.
Well, what are some reasons that you wouldn't get in besides your GPA?
Praxis. You
Oh.
can't pass the praxis test. And that's one of the main ones.
Do you just have to have your Praxis 1?
There are options, and everything's laid out on the green sheet. You could do the Praxis 1, which consists of reading, writing, and mathematics. You have to get a composite of 532 in order to pass, to be admitted. You could also submit your SAT scores if they're taken after 1995. It's an 1100 overall with a 530 in the math and a 530 in the verbal. It has to be a breakdown. You can also submit your ACT scores. And I don't know that scoring off the top of my head because we get very few individuals who submit ACTs. The last option you could do would be the Praxis 1 math only. and the VCLA. The VCLA is the Virginia Communication Literacy Assessment. And that's going to be required throughout the program, so it might be an option you want to look at, is doing just the Praxis 1 math, getting the passing score of a 178, and the VCLA. So those are your options.
Can you if you going off of her question, if you don't get if you don't get accepted in teacher prep, can you if you choose not to go to another degree program and you're just kind of in that stuck place, can you reapply to teacher prep at a later
Absolutely.
date? Okay.
Yes. But when you apply to teacher prep, you're going to have to also be applying to graduate school, because by that time you will be a degree holder. You can't just stay in limbo and not do anything unless you decide to take another semester of classes just to buy some time. That's the only other way. But other than that, you would have to apply concurrently to graduate school and teacher preparation at the same time.
And that's an automatic 2 years. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
What's the difference between practicum A and practicum B?
Practicum A is the initial phase. That's your first observations that you get to go into the school systems. And you're doing more observation and short, lesson plan writing, small assignments, things like that. When you get into Practicum B, you're doing more of the content with English and math and history and social studies. And you're doing more hands-on with the teachers. And you're doing more thick lesson plan writing. So it gets, as you go up in the program, it gets more intense.
June, could you quickly talk about how students are assigned to schools in the districts? I know we get a lot of questions about how they're placed exactly.
What happens is, for practicum, students come in and we do what's called like a lottery. And what you do is you tell us what area you would like to be placed in. We do not let students tell us which school they want to be placed in. And we have our reasoning for that, because a lot of people have cousins or relatives or mothers, and they want to be placed in that school, and that's against the rules. So we let you tell us what county you want to be in, but you have to be mindful that wherever you do your practicums, you won't be able to do your student teaching experience, because what we want you to do is get the experience of all 4 divisions of the school district to kind of compare and contrast, so that when you get out there, you kind of know what you want to do. So you get to choose for practicum. When you get to your student teaching placement, you also get to choose the county. But depending on where you've been placed for your practicums, we're going to go to opposite for your student teaching experience. But you always have that choice of the counties. But keep in mind that we want to get you in all of the counties as much as possible. So that's the whole idea, is to give you an experience of all of the school districts and how they operate. Get you? Yes.
I'm considering getting my master's in the counseling program.
Okay.
How is that different from?
Look right.
Look to your right.
We're going to get ready to...
Look, I'm going to say, because I will dominate this. I will dominate
It's
this.
perfect. We're actually going to move on to the Masters of Education programs. And as we go through, if you have other questions, we feel free to contact Ms. Jones.
Yes.
But we're going to go ahead and move on to the 2 Masters of Education. So, Dr. Herman, if you'd like to go ahead and share a little bit about your program.
Absolutely, and that's a great first question. With teaching, and I was a teacher first before I got my master's in counseling, you really do, you're doing teaching, you're constantly working with large groups of students, usually in special ed, sometimes you'll have some smaller groups. And that's what you do. Not to say that as a teacher I didn't do a lot of listening and some informal counseling, and when I became a counselor I was still a teacher, and that was really helpful to me to have that background, because kids do come to you and start talking about things. But as a counselor, you're going to do a variety of things. You will do large group guidance, which is when you're going into the classrooms and doing programming about anti-bullying or suicide prevention or those types of things. And we teach you how to do assessments to see what kinds of programs that your school, the students really need. We also have a course, one of my favorite courses that I teach is the women's course, or it's gender issues in counseling, and we talk about some of the eating disorders and body image issues and self-esteem issues, and you will be doing a lot of that if you work with young women. And then guys need, certain, their socialization is also, so you'll pick which things that you want to do based on where you're placed. You also will do group counseling, which is working with maybe 4 to 8 students and who have a similar challenge, like a divorce. They've all had divorced parents or those types of things. And then you'll do a lot of individual work where you're actually counseling. Our program is a 48-hour degree program, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to tune out now because this isn't what I want to do. But I tell you, a lot of times people get in and they're like, I really want to be more engaged with the students. So keep this in mind. It's a potential for you. This is a 48-hour degree because it is a mental health degree. It's not a school counseling degree, it's a counseling degree. And if you take 12 more courses, you can become licensed as a professional counselor. So it's very mental health based and not teaching based so much. So there is, if you're in the school counseling track, there actually is some work that you'll do on those issues, but otherwise not. So we have 2 tracks. We have the school counseling track and we have the college student development counseling track. So folks who want to work in K through 12 schools do the school counseling track. Folks who want to work with college students do the student affairs track, or the college student development and counseling, which is the short name for that is the student affairs track. And I have the curriculum for both of those, so if anybody's interested, you're welcome to take a copy of these at the end of the meeting. Like I said, both of these are 48-hour degree programs, and you can go on and do a postmaster's or take the coursework to become licensed as a professional counselor, which is different than becoming licensed as a school counselor, which the 48-hour school counseling program will provide you all the things that you need for that. Other things, you need an undergraduate degree. There are no prerequisites other than you need an undergraduate degree to apply for this program. And we have undergraduate, folks come in with undergraduate degrees in everything from business to teaching to, and some people come in with a master's in teaching already. If you have a master's in teaching, that's wonderful. You still have to get the master's in counseling. There is no just endorsement. We used to have a program like that, but we closed that several years ago. And we're moving to admission only for the summer and fall semester, so we will not be admitting students into the spring semester. So that deadline, we're moving back to February 15th. So every year, February 15th is the deadline you want, and we are going to start interviewing students to make sure that you have the interpersonal skills necessary. We're going to help you, help facilitate the growth in those skills, but we want people who are nice and smile and, have just some general people skills to begin with, because that's going to be really important in our program. We have on our counselor education website, and there's a really long, and it's on one of these forms, long thing you can write down, or you can just do what I do, which is go to the VCU web page, go to C, and look up counselor education and click on that, and that gets you the counselor education page, and that gives you our handbook, which is very thorough, and it talks about all the courses that you need and what's in those courses and some of our policies. You do a practicum and an internship in school counseling or student affairs. Practicum is 100 hours in the setting where you're doing individual group and you're also doing large group or programs, and internship is 600 hours. So that's full-time, 40 hours a week for one semester. Some of our students work, so we break that over 2 semesters. You don't have to do 300 hours one semester, you can break it up depending on what works for you. And there's a comprehensive exam, which is a paper and pencil test, multiple choice test at the end of the program. You can also become a nationally certified counselor by taking another test, which is a little pricey. You might even want to start saving now. It's almost $300, but that gets you a credential of national certified counselor. And after 2 years, I believe, of service as a school counselor, and you take another test, you can become a nationally certified school counselor. Here in Virginia right now, that's not getting a whole lot, except that it shows that you are very dedicated to your career and you want the highest level of certification and licensure you can get. But in other states, like in Louisiana and Mississippi, it gets you $5,000 or $6,000 more a year added to your salary. So we do encourage people to become nationally certified counselors. It's a tough exam, and only about 90% of our students, I think it's 88% is what our passage rate is right now. But it's still, most of our students who take the exam do pass. Any questions or anything that some of my former students and students want to add, other than the professors are wonderful?
It's a great program. I'll say that. So. I love it so far.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I love it so far, so no complaints.
Nydia's in the school counseling track right now, and I went through the higher education track, student affairs, whatever our program name for it is. What Dr. Kerman was saying about how you have to have a bachelor's degree, that means that instead of going on to the extended teacher prep, like you would with Ms. Jones, you would need to graduate. So students who want to go into the program, you just have to let us know, because you just have to graduate, so then you can turn around and be admitted to the program.
For school counseling, do you work with students from elementary to high school? Or?
Very, very good question. The licensure is pre-K through 12, and so we require that you work at least one of your practicum or internship sites is in an elementary school, and then the other can be in middle school, as long as you're working with 7th and 8th grades, or high school. So you could potentially get all three if you break your internship over. You know, it takes 2 years if you go straight through and do the $600 internship in 1 year, in 1 semester rather. But it takes, you know, if you want to take a little bit longer, which a lot of people do, because a lot of people have jobs, and you cannot do this full time and have a job that's more than 20 hours a week. In fact, that's kind of pushing it. Internship would be really hard to do, because that's 60 hours a week of just internship and job, plus there's a course that goes along with it, and lots of paperwork that goes along with it. We keep trying to narrow that down, but so it can be intense. It gives you lots of options though, and actually we're working on the we have it's called the post-baccalaureate certificate in student affairs right now. So if you went through the school counseling program and you decided you really want to work in student affairs, one thing you could do is do the certificate program and have that. You could become a licensed professional counselor, you know, and eventually even have a private practice. There's lots of supervision before licensure though, if you're looking at the professional counseling program. So there's lots of opportunities.
I have 2 questions. After you finish the counseling degree in education, you get your license, and then will you have a license in that? If I take like 12 credits to get my license as a counselor, will I have license as a
Yes, so you would have a school counseling license, and it's an educator license with a school counseling endorsement, is I think the way they officially describe it. And then the LPC, the licensed professional counselor, you take the 12 hours, you register with the board, the LPC board. You have to get a supervised. You have to do a certain, couple of years of supervised experience, in which time they call you. They have a specific name for what you're called. You're not quite an LPC yet, but you're an LPC in training, basically. And that's after the coursework. So it's a longer road, but it's important because, when we're talking about mental health training, we're talking about, you're really working with people on a very intimate level, and we really want to make sure that you're trained and supervised until we're sure you know what you're doing, before we let you loose on the society.
Your GRE and MAT is like this program as well?
You do need either a GRE or an MAT, and also on our counselor education website, I have a link for prospective students where I tell you what you want to put, the types of things you want to put in your statement of purpose when you're applying, talk about what the GRE and MAT cutoffs are, and so that's going to be important. It's one aspect, but you really want to do the best you can on that, on those tests, because that's important. And you also, 3.0 GPA to be considered. So, a lot of times college can be a lot of fun, and it can be easy to not necessarily apply yourself as much as but if you're looking at graduate school, the graduate school is very hesitant to admit people who do not have the 3.0 GPA.
So to add to that, all of our programs within the School of Education have the same program requirements. So you're going to do the GREs or the MATs. You're going to have that 3.0 GPA. You're going to do that personal statement. So it's pretty much the same for all of the programs.
we wanted to get our bachelor's in education, we would have to let you all know, and then you could switch over and get our master's in counseling.
What it means is that you would graduate from the LSEE program, not eligible to teach because you didn't go through extended teacher prep, but you need the bachelor's degree to go into the counseling program. So you would let us know that you wanted to graduate. Because you know if you go into extended teacher prep, we're not graduating you at the end of your 4 years. You're scooting on and then you graduate with both. Instead, we actually graduate you. And then you apply into the counseling program because a bachelor's degree is a prereq to be admitted to the counselor education program.
So that practice would have to be passed either way.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little.
It gets a little dicey. There is an additional option, and we can definitely talk about this, Sherry, because there are other ways to graduate you if you haven't passed that praxis. If you are looking into either the Master of Education options, there is a different way. It's a little bit more tricky if you're looking at special ed. Counselor, definitely not. We can get you out and go. But if you're going into Master of Teaching, yes, you have to go. You have to get the praxis, and you're moving straight through. You don't get your degrees until you're done everything.
Okay. So you don't have to go to teachers prep whenever you go.
Yes, you do. You have to go to the undergrad practicum A. You have to do because that's part of your undergrad. You wouldn't go into practicum B.
But there is another way for students
who are struggling with the praxis or struggling with some of those admissions requirements to teacher prep.
To graduate them and let them go on.
Yep.
I didn't get to hear the price difference between the internship for the counseling and the teaching. Was there a big difference?
Really, the only difference is you are looking at a different number of credit hours for the two programs. The Master of Teaching program is basically you're looking at about one less semester. Okay. So that's kind of the price difference is the number of credit hours to complete the programs.
What's the difference between the GRE and the MAT?
It's a good question. I think the GRE, there's a math component, and then there's the there's a writing piece, and there's also, what's the other piece? Is the
reading, reading and writing.
Reading, vocabulary.
And math. It's pretty much like the praxis SAT, but on a higher level. Yeah.
The MAT.
And the MAT is just total analogies.
You need math concept, but you don't have to solve math problems.
Right.
The MAT is
and the MAT is 60 minutes, 120 questions.
It's for the what?
The MAT. So you have 30 seconds of questions. Or the GRE is more like the SAT or the praxis.
You have time.
Right. It's more drawn out.
So you can, for like Masters in Teaching, you only have to do GRE, right?
Or one or the other.
One or the other.
Okay.
Our recommendation is go onto both websites. Go onto both websites. Try a couple questions and see which one you feel comfortable with. There is also price differences, and the scoring is very different too. So the way that the percentiles are done and the way that they're scored is very different. So definitely go on and see which one you feel more comfortable with. Don't listen to other students because what that student feels comfortable with is not necessarily what's best for you.
Like Lisa took the GRE, loved it. I took the MAT and did much better. So two totally different learning styles.
So for students,
one or the other.
You know, you can, and I really recommend that. I didn't have to take the GRE till it had been 20 years since I had, gone through high school math, and I had to kind of relearn math before I took the GRE. So, I went and got a book and just, practiced, and it's something that's important. I do find that students get a little bit hung up on it and really freak out about it. So we don't recommend that you do that necessarily, but it's something you study for, and because you don't just go in and take it. I mean, I guess you could, but I didn't. I spent some time because it is an important component of what we look at, and graduate school kicks back stuff if we don't, if you all don't have the scores that they're looking for. I can occasionally make, if it's something that's a real small difference, I can occasionally make an argument that this person has this, so I'm not so worried about that. But you do want to take it seriously, but not so much that it makes you totally freaked out. It shouldn't do that.
One more question? I just wanted to say, if you went into your education or counselor masters, and so you went all the way through, and then you were actually in the field, and you realized maybe you wanted to go back to education. Would you have to go back to get your master's in education? I know she said that vice versa, but I wasn't sure if it was the same.
Mm-hmm. Like to go back and get your master's in teaching.
Yeah.
All right, and Dr. Bates. Oh.
I have one more question. I think I heard from somebody that if you get your master's in education, is it true that you can still do counseling? They said they weren't sure, but somebody told me that. Not true.
No. You can keep that to source. No
Very
way.
different training.
Yeah.
Nothing,
That's what I figured.
nothing wrong with the teaching training, and like I said, I had that first. And it was very helpful because when you're doing group guidance with a group of people, it's nice that you have a little bit of background on classroom management and things like that. But our training is much more mental health based. I mean, like I said, you're 12 hours away from becoming licensed as a therapist, basically. So.
Sure.
So would you recommend doing teaching before you do that?
Not necessarily. There used to be a law that you had to do it that way, and I just had a student write a dissertation on, the differences, and, there's positives and negatives to each. If you have come in as a teacher and you go back like I did, I had to learn how to not be a teacher when I was working with students, because as a teacher, I clearly knew everything that everybody needed to know.
Yeah.
And, but as a counselor, I don't know anything. I have to ask questions and not be directive, and so it's very different. It's a different skill set in a way.
Yeah.
So that was, a challenge, whereas if you don't have teaching experience, you do much better. Often you don't have to unlearn anything with the counseling piece, but you don't know anything about the school environment necessarily, and so, there's pros and cons, and I'm glad they took that law away, so it's really, up to you. You don't have to be in school forever. Though we did just have our doctoral program passed, and so I'm thinking down the line.
And Dr. Bader is going to talk to you about the special education program for the Master's in Education.
So is there anybody here that has their heart on becoming a special education teacher? Great. Is there anyone that doesn't know, maybe, sort of, kind of, that they might want to go into special education? That's even great, too. Mm-hmm. And is there anyone here that wants to become both a general education teacher and a special education teacher? Okay.
I'm open to it.
Yeah. All right. At VCU, we do not have an undergraduate program in special education. We don't have a 5-year MT program in special education. We only have 3 MED programs in special education. We have early childhood special education that prepares you to work with infants from the time of birth until age 2, and what you're working with is really family. And you're really working with the family of children who are developmentally delayed. They're not meeting the same developmental milestones as would be expected. So that you're trained to work both with the families, but then you're also trained to be a preschool teacher for students with developmental disabilities. So you have both experiences in the early childhood special education program, and you get to choose, which area are you more drawn to. But you do get the experience of working with children and families from birth through the age of 4 up until kids go into kindergarten. The second area of special education is what's called special education general, or special education general curriculum. It's a huge category. It prepares you to work with students who have what's called high incidence disabilities that are more prevalent in our society. And it prepares you to work with the kids that are going to spend part of their time within the general education setting. So you're not going to see kids that are going to be all day in a special education classroom in the area of special education general. We prepare you to be collaborative teachers, that you're going to be working with the general education teacher in the same classroom, and you might be sharing content, but you certainly are going to be sharing your skills with with your students that are in special education, as well as with the teachers, of the different strategies that are needed for these kids. Now, the students that you would find in special education in general would be kids with learning disabilities, kids with mild and moderate intellectual disabilities, students that have emotional behavior disorders, students that have the, I don't like this word mild moderate, but it really is, the disabilities that are considered autism spectrum disorders, and kids that have traumatic brain injury. We do not have programs that specifically train you to work with students who have visual disabilities or who are deaf and hard of hearing. So that's a complete different specialty. But in special education in general, you really are learning a wide array of strategies that you can apply to any of the students with any of the different disabilities. The third category is severe disabilities. And these, we prepare you to work with the students who have the multiple disabilities, who have significant support needs. These are the kids that might have cerebral palsy and an intellectual disability. They have physical disabilities and they have intellectual disabilities. These are the kids that you are more likely to find in a self-contained classroom for most of the day. You have a lower ratio of students to teachers. You also are finding increasingly the students that have autism, the full spectrum autism, that we don't know intellectually, what their capacity is and their functioning is if they do have an intellectual disability. You'll see those students in the severe disability classrooms. We also call that special education adapted curriculum. All three programs lead to licensure. All three programs have different credit hour requirements. Early childhood has 40, special education general is 37, and severe disabilities is 42. So we're not consistent about that, but we all have the same requirements. And it's the same requirements as any of the programs that we've talked about today. What we have found is that there are students that are in the LSEE program that do want to become special educators. And the LSEE provides you with a really good background because it gives you all of the basic undergraduate coursework that you need to have the liberal studies or the liberal studies equivalents that we need you to have to be able to teach special education. In special education, you need to be, especially at the elementary level, you need to have a wide knowledge base of the different topics and different subjects. Because in our programs, in the MED programs, we don't deal with content. You have to come in with some content knowledge. And the LSE program is perfect for this, absolutely perfect. But we found that there are individuals that are in the LSE program that want to be a special education teacher. And if you have your heart set on it, you can do this. And how you do it is that you take all of the LSE coursework through Practicum A. Then what you do is you take an additional ethics course. It's like almost anything that has ethics in its name, an undergraduate course. And a course that's called TEDU 330, Survey of Special Education. Those are the two additional course requirements, and then I think you have to have probably an additional 6 to 9 credit hours to be able to get yourself up to 120 credit hours. So then once you have the 120 credit hours, you can graduate with your BIS. In your last semester, you apply to the MED program, whichever one that you're interested in, and then you can go directly, or if you want a little bit of time between the two, what you would do is you would apply in, probably, it's almost now, you apply 9 months before you want to enter the program, the master's degree program. Questions?
I'm in the ELSA program and I want to, do general ed, but in the long run, I know I want to do special ed and I want to work with autistic children, so I would do that through this program.
No, what you can do, if you know that you you know, that you want to do the general program. It makes sense for a lot of people, in fact, most students. It makes sense to complete your 5-year MT degree. Get your general education teacher license. Get yourself into a collaborative classroom. You know, a job in a collaborative classroom where you're working with both general education students and some students that are in special education. Then what you can go back and get just the licensure coursework in special education. Special education is the only way you can do this. What you can't have a special education degree. You can't be licensed in special education and then just do add-on endorsement coursework in general education.
Right.
But you can, starting out as a general education teacher, you can go back and do your coursework. It would be an additional 27 credit hours.
Okay.
27 to 30, but somewhere in there to be able to go back. But to be able to get your special education licensure endorsement into your MT. You don't really need 2 master's degrees.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay the money in 2 master's degrees. So you would do the master's degree
And then come back.
and then come back. But if you know you absolutely want to be a special education teacher, make an appointment with me, and I will make sure that you're connected with the right program and that we are on the same page as to what you need to do and when you need to do it to apply to the master's degree program. Do not assume that because you can't get into teacher prep in the LSE program that you can go and become a special education teacher. No. It doesn't work that way. We have the same requirements, the same GPA, the same requirements, and you have to be admitted to teacher prep. So, other questions?
I guess something I would like to mention is because I do the licensure piece as well. A lot of people try to come back and get endorsed in regular elementary education. That cannot be done. So if you're thinking you want to do something other than regular education, but regular education, general education, is on your mind, it would benefit you to get that initial licensure in elementary education and then go back and do any other content that you're interested in. Because you can always add endorsements onto that initial licensure for elementary education. So kind of keep that in mind.
With 2 masters, does that do anything to like salary? I know like plus
No.
30 does and stuff like that.
No, only if you have a master's degree, you can have 3 master's degree. It means nothing.
Yeah,
Okay.
unless it's in content. It means that you like school.
What can you do with the plus like 30? Like what can you go and like learn about something else? Because I'm just like struggling between elementary and counseling, and I just like want to know like.
You could do both of those. Those would be 2 good degrees though, because they're so totally different.
But it's a lot of money to be spending.
Well, yeah, but it's like it's no quick way around it. See,
Right.
because the fields are so unique.
Yeah.
So it's just
And one thing, if you are, I know people who are working as counselors and then for the 12 extra hours become licensed professional counselors and have a private practice. And so they can, that, gives you the opportunity to earn some extra money.
Right.
Doing, or even just doing tutoring or so. I have a friend of mine who's a counselor, who was a teacher, and she opened up her own business doing tutoring and counseling.
Oh,
There's lots of options.
yeah. The gateway though is teaching. Seriously though, because a lot of the programs, it leads to teaching. A lot of people want to teach a while and then they want to get out and do the administration piece. So they have that teaching experience because many of the programs suggest that you have some teaching behind you, especially like the reading program. That's another program.
Or, a lot of times, it's one of the things that starts to be taught, but you get your teaching and then that school district will help pay for you to go back and get some extra coursework to lead to counseling or lead to something else. The plus 30 is as you're heading towards a PhD.
Yeah, what is that?
So yeah, that's when you're getting a doctorate degree in something. So
you just are furthering in your specialty.
yeah, it's, you're getting a.
Can I say something about that?
Yep.
There is a difference between the MT degree and the MED degree.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And the difference is that in the MED program, you have research coursework. In the MT program, you don't. So if you have an MT degree and you're going to go on for your PhD, you're going to have to take some prerequisite research coursework. That's really the only difference between the two degrees.
Whereas in the counselor education program, you take a class called research methods.
Yes,
So that's what gives you. It's EDUS 660.
660.
That's what I thought, yeah. So that gives you like the foundation you need to move back.
When you say endorsement, does that mean anything that doesn't have a, that you can get through from? You know, like this special education, you can get a teacher, master's in teaching, and then an endorsement in special education, but you couldn't get one in counseling.
Well, special education is an MED. That's an MED program. That's not MT, stands for Master of Teaching, which are initial licensure programs. The master's program were usually, the way it used to be was that they were for veteran teachers who were coming back to get that master's, and then they switched it out because there was a special ed MT program, but they discontinued it and made it strictly MED. But when you get endorsed, say you're going through the LSEE program, you have a strong interest in math. Well, you know you want to teach elementary education, so you still want to stay with the LSEE program and get that certification. Once you get that initial licensure in elementary education, and you say, wow, I got all of this math, I want to teach this as well, you can get an endorsement added to that license in math. What you have to do is take the Praxis 2 and make sure that you have the correct content courses. You take the Praxis 2, pass it, they will endorse you in math. So an endorsement is like an add-on of a content area. To your initial licensure, you have to have the initial licensure. But you couldn't do an endorsement with an MED with a counselor ed because that's not a teacher program.
Do you guys have any information on the reading? Is that an option for students not also program?
Not coming straight out. In order to get reading, you have to have taught for at least 2 to 3 years. So that's why I'm saying it's like teaching is the gateway to a lot of the other programs. That also is an MED program. But there's it's a reading program, but you have to have taught at least 2 to 3 years before you qualify for that program.
Any other questions?
I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in the counseling program, and my email's on the website, but it's also, I can just give it to you, it's MAHERMANN@vcu.edu. So it's MAHERMANN@vcu.edu.
My email is B as in boy, A, another B as in boy, another A, DER@vcu.edu. BA Bader @vcu.edu.
I'm not giving out mine. No, it's J, B as in baby, Jones. The numeric number 1 @vcu.edu. So that's JB Jones, numeric number 1 @vcu.edu.
Can we give all of our speakers a round of applause?
And the presentation, as well as their information, will also be on the LSEE Blackboard. Lydia has been so kind to videotape this for us. We will be adding this as well as all their contact information and their websites to the LSEE Blackboard.
I'll take it.
Thank you all
Thank
for coming.
you. Thanks for coming.